We have some sponsors, one of which is Cidi Labs. So thank you, Cidi Labs, for sponsoring us. These are our gold sponsors, Cidi Labs, Instructure, and Respondus. And then we also have some silver sponsors. And we just want to say thank you to them for sponsoring this and for supporting us. And so with that, um, I want to introduce our presenters for this session. They're all from Cidi Labs. We have Kenneth Larson, Taylor Lester, and Carla Malone. And the title of this session is Transform Your Canvas Course with these 3 simple research-backed strategies and have fun doing it. And with that, I will let you take it away.
All right. Share the slides here and we can get up and going. So welcome everyone. I'm glad that you came to join us. I won't bother reading the title again, but hopefully y'all know where you are and you're in the right place because we're going to talk about some fun things today. As far as introductions go, my name is Kenneth Larson. I am the co-founder and chief instructional designer here at Cidi Labs, and I'll tell you a little bit more of my story a little bit as we go on today. But we have 2 guests with us today from some of our Cidi Labs customers. Taylor joined the Center for Online Learning Research and Service at the University of Illinois Springfield in July of 2023 after working as a high school English teacher for 8 years. As an educator, she focused on culturally relevant teaching and anti-oppression work to best serve populations of diverse students. Additionally, she worked as a teacher of college-bound high school students, helping them successfully transition from high school to higher education. She earned her Bachelor of Arts degree in English with a minor in secondary education from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. So we're excited to have Taylor with us. Carla is an instructional design coordinator at Northwest Mississippi Community College. She's an experienced educator and instructional designer with 15 years in the education field, including 9 years in the K-12 realm. She holds a bachelor's degree in information technology services and a master's degree in instructional technology from Mississippi State University. Carla's expertise spans instructional design, educational technology, and faculty training. Her background includes serving as both a technology director and an instructional designer, giving her a comprehensive understanding of technology's technical back end and user experience. Currently, she is the instructional design coordinator at Northwest Mississippi Community College, as I mentioned before, where she focuses on developing innovative learning experiences and enhancing digital accessibility for educators and students. A passionate advocate for making technology accessible and empowering others to embrace it, Carla shares her knowledge through workshops and conferences, as she believes technology will never replace great teachers, but technology in the hands of great teachers can be transformational. Quote from George, I don't know how to say that last name, Kuro. In her free time, Carla enjoys binge watching TV shows, watching movies, listening to audiobooks, and spending quality time with family and friends. Traveling is another passion of hers whenever possible. And Carla also avidly supports her favorite football teams, cheering on the Mississippi State Bulldogs and the Philadelphia Eagles. So we're glad to have Carla with us today. So I'm going to start just a little bit here with a little bit about Cidi Labs. So my Canvas content creation journey started back in 2013. I was a grad student at Utah State University working on my master's to become an instructional designer. And I was tasked with helping faculty build courses in Canvas. And yeah, I got somewhat annoyed with some of the limitations and the tedium of online course building. Have a background in web development, and I was lucky enough to have a boss crazy enough that he let me start hacking Canvas to see if I could get it to do some of the things that we thought it should do all along. And then it continued to, snowball from there. We shared those tools with my team, then we shared that with some of our faculty who talked to other faculty, who talked to other faculty at other institutions. And so in 2016, Utah State University created Cidi Labs as a company that can partner with institutions to take tools that were developed in-house and share those with other institutions. So over the years, our team has grown to include educators, instructional designers, and even former customers, people who, like us, are passionate about improving the learning experience for everyone. We now offer 6 products for Canvas, covering everything from accessibility to course lifecycle management. Each of these tools has been developed in partnership with our customers and through collaborations with universities. Today, we're going to be showcasing Design Plus, our must-have design suite of 3 tools that make creating content in Canvas accessible, affordable, and fun, as well as UDoIT, our course accessibility assistant. If you're curious about any of our products, please reach out for a demo. We'd love to help you find the right tools for your needs. So with that, let's go ahead and kick this off. Now, after today's session, the goal is that you will be able to organize content to reduce cognitive overload and support a focus on learning, engage learners with interactive and visually appealing course designs, and create courses that are accessible by design. Now, as the title of this session suggests, these are research-backed strategies. If you want to dig deeper into the research and find out more information, this QR code, which we will see in the corner of each of the places where we reference research, this will take you to a lot more of the details. We didn't want to overwhelm you with the full quotes and all the citation stuff, but you can find all of that by following that QR code. So let's start off with strategy number 1. This strategy is to leverage cognitive load theory for clearer course design. According to cognitive load theory, it's important to avoid overloading learners' working memory. And so there's a variety of different ways that we can do that. Because learners have a limited amount of mental resources available at any given time. And if you present too much information all at once, they're going to struggle to retain it. So research says chunking content helps learners manage cognitive overload. So let's take a look at a few examples of how you might do that. Now, this can be as simple as just making sure you're breaking up your content using headings. That's a great way to visually chunk content and something that anyone can do. But you can also have more fun. So for example, with Design Plus, we often use what we call content blocks. They're a nice structural way to build your content and can also provide some visual breakup in addition to just the white space of headings. You can also add icons. We'll show you a little bit of how that works later on as well. You might do something like putting content into columns to kind of compare or contrast or even just kind of utilize that space. And then, you might use something more dynamic. So let's say you have more content that you want to pace people through. You could use things like accordion panels. So those are some examples, and we'll talk more about these as we go through. Now, Taylor, why don't you go ahead and talk us through the example that you've brought to share?
Yeah, so just to give a little context for what we're going to be seeing on screen, my office has had the extreme pleasure of working with our medical laboratory science program to work towards a fully online lab program. And as you might imagine in any kind of lab program, things can get pretty complex pretty fast. So what you're seeing on screen right now is an example of a lab procedure from one of these courses. And when I was given the materials from this instructor, there were a lot of steps, but there were like sub-steps after sub-steps, and trying to track it like on a piece of paper was really, really difficult. Plus, we had all these images that needed to go with specific parts of it. And we were running into kind of like this beef in the trifle moment where students couldn't quite track exactly what they were supposed to be working on at each time. So they would skip ahead and miss important informations, and all of a sudden, they haven't quite done the lab correctly. So by putting these steps into this accordion format, we are able to make sure that students are seeing what step they're working on and all of the information that is relevant to that particular step is in that accordion. Any images that they need for visual reference, any sub-steps that they need, all of that is contained, and students can really control when they're seeing that information and how they're seeing it. They can decide when it's important and when it's time to move on to the next step. So putting it in this format allows the students to take that control back over how they interact with this lab procedure.
Thank you. And this is a great example. This is something that we would refer to as an expander, where you can have multiple panels open at once, or you could have an accordion where there's just a single panel at a time, depending on how you want students to interact with that. So love that. Thank you. All right. So research says when learners must attend to two separate items at the same time, such as text and a corresponding image, they utilize more processing capacity. So as much as we like to think we're good at multitasking, it's more a matter of facilitating that task switching. So Taylor, you brought along an example of this as well. Why don't you talk us through this one?
Yeah, I would love to. So, in this particular example, again, we're still looking at these online labs, and this particular lab had students looking at hair samples that were found at a supposed crime scene and comparing those hair samples together in order to decide if there's a match between the sample found at the scene and the suspects in the case. Now, the video that the instructor gave us had the person in the video say, here's the hair sample, pause and take a look. But if a student couldn't see what was happening in that video, how could they take a look at what was going on? So we really needed to address some accessibility concerns as well when we were moving this into Canvas. So what I have here is I have kind of three layers of understanding for these images. Obviously, we have the image itself with a brief caption underneath, so at a glance, you can tell which sample is which. Each sample also has alt text, which is a very short description of what exactly is in that image. But because we're talking about complex scientific images, we also wrote image descriptions, and we used the columns tool to do that so that the image and the image description could sit side by side. And students who could see that could track it with their eyes right next to each other. But students who could not see the image would still have access to that image description, and it would be read in the inappropriate order for the task that they needed to. I also want to just point out that the image description here is it still has that scientific language. We didn't compromise any of the rigor of the assignment. We made sure that it was still rigorous and still matched the goals of the course. But by providing that information there, it not only benefits students who couldn't see that video originally, but it benefits all of the students who might benefit from having a stronger explanation of what exactly they're seeing in the image.
Great. And I love the use of columns. The nice thing about columns make it so that when you do have that larger screen, you can see it side by side, but a student working on, say, their smartphone, they would see the image with that description right below it. So it makes it nice and responsive to different screen sizes. All right. Research says, I feel like I'm hosting Family Feud here. Research says visual structures reduce cognitive load and improve concept retention, as well as boost future assessment performance. So let's take a look at some of the examples from the Design Plus library that can kind of help introduce this idea of visual structures. So you might do something like using cards or cards in columns where you can break these up and put things side by side, providing additional information, breaking that up. I read not too long ago this cool study where it referenced how those of us who grew up with textbooks, you probably recall participating in like a test or something, and you're like, wait, I can remember that was in the top left corner, and you have that visual memory attached to when you learned that. And so using these visual structures inside your course content also helps users retain that information because it gives them that frame of reference when they're looking back at it. Here are some other examples where you can see how the visual structure helps you break up content. That can be using callouts or breaking up sections or even just adding contrast there to the screen. And Carla's brought us some examples here as well. So Carla, why don't you talk us through your example?
So in my role, I build a lot of professional development in-house for our instructors. So in order to still kind of stay in line with reducing the cognitive load, I try to break the content down where if they get to a point, because some of our instructors will work on this self-paced and professional development in between their classes. So by me being able to chunk it down and put it into an accordion, it makes it easier for them to keep up with where they have started and stopped if they actually are doing this in between classes. And it also helps them find quick reference points if they saw something in the training and they're trying to actually implement something in their course. It's easier for them to go back and find exactly what they're looking for instead of like, I know I saw that somewhere. I don't remember where I saw it at. So I'm pretty strategic about when I'm building things, how I name it when I'm putting it in the accordions. So like in this example, I was introducing them to Canvas Studio because we had a lot of instructors, you know, recording in YouTube, embedding them into Canvas through Cidi Labs, which you can do, but we were also trying to encourage them when we were thinking about accessibility that Studio actually does a lot of the closed captioning for you. So it was my way of showing them if you record here in Studio, these are some of the things that you can do with your videos in your course. And so by me being able to chunk it down and talk about, in this case, it was the interface, you know, how to use the Screencast-O-Matic, the Studio Capture option, how to edit the videos, and then how to add the videos from a third-party application, which if they are bringing in YouTube or Vimeo, they can actually find those very easily and just watch that video to see how to quickly do that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the use of what you put in a heading is very important because you want it to be something that students can very quickly grasp and understand to grab that structure. So thank you. Now we've talked about Design Plus, shown you some examples. So let me just do a quick show of kind of what it looks like to use Design Plus. So here's an existing page in Canvas with just kind of your basic normal content that you might create. Design Plus, one of the tools in Design Plus, the sidebar where most of your design takes place, can be accessed by clicking this little rocket ship up here in the top corner. Now, I might start off by coming in here and applying a theme that kind of sets the basic look and feel of the content. I can come down to the style section and maybe I have a different, theme that I want to apply there. I can also have fun with the look and feel. So maybe I want to come in and I want to, choose some icons to go along with this. So, we can search through. We have a series of over, 2,000 icons that are available that have been keyword indexed and categorized to help you have some fun looking, adding some little decorative elements here to your content. If I'm working with a list, I can rearrange things, remove things, add additional items. I can, turn links into buttons and make sure they have appropriate, text, and I can have them open in a new tab. I can select an image and I can make sure that it has appropriate alternative text to it. Or I might come into the style section here and say, I want that floated to the left of the content. And maybe I want to set a specific size and maybe I want it to have a nice round border style to it. So you can use this sidebar to quickly go in and start adding content. And if I want to do fun things like, let's say that I want to add in an accordion, I can search for or find in the list an accordion, drop it in there. I can rearrange panels, add additional panels, etc. I could also decide if I wanted that expander option where you can open multiple panels at a time, or I could choose, tabs if I want them to be tabs instead. So you've got a lot of flexibility there. If I want to, let's say that I want to add in some cards. I can come in here and I can search for the card tool. I can drop that in. I can customize this. Let's say maybe I want an image in there and, maybe I have a list of items to add, etc. And I can set up a card and then let's say, well, maybe I want more of those. So I can say I want actually 4 cards. So now I've got a row of 4 of those and I can go in. Those are built inside of columns. So I can come in and I can rearrange these. I can remove one. I can, duplicate others, to create more cards. So there's a lot of different things that you can do there to visually break in the content. There's also the ability to pull in pre-configured things. So let's say, for example, you're starting with a brand new page. We can open what we call our Design Plus Quick Start Wizard, where I can open this up. I can pull from templates that have been created. So let's say I want to create a nice home page. I can come in and look at some examples here, or here's another example of a home page. I could search in those as well. So I can drop that in. I've got that nice starting point for adding a homepage. Maybe I want to add some additional blocks. So maybe I want to come in and maybe we want to add some cards to this. So I can take some pre-configured sets of cards and add those in. And I can rearrange things and I can remove things. And these are all these templates and these blocks that you can add are all customizable at the institution level. So that's a little bit of how Design Plus works. If you want to dig deeper, by all means, reach out and we can set up a time for you to see a little bit more. So let's move on then to strategy 2, boost engagement with multimedia and interactive elements. So research says that online formative assessment and feedback has been linked with positive learning outcomes, including increased student self-monitoring, engagement, concept retention, and motivation, and then also assessment performance. So these are some great things that we want to do, and quick checks are something that we provide in Design Plus as a quick formative assessment that can allow students to kind of get feedback as they're practicing. And Taylor, you've brought us some examples. Why don't you tell us about some of the fun ways that you have implemented quick checks?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, like I was mentioning before, we are working with our medical laboratory science program on an online lab program, but what we're building towards is a really high stakes assessment. They needed to complete a certification and accreditation exam at the end of the program in order to receive those credentials and be able to move forward with work in laboratories across the country. So, there's a lot of information that they need to keep track of throughout their time in each of these courses. There's a lot of videos to watch or materials to engage in, and then they need to keep that all in mind as they move forward in the course and in the program. So what we've done is we've used content blocks to create little lessons in each page, and each lesson for this particular course has some materials that they need to have access to, but there's always time to review using quick checks before they move on from this page. So this quick check they will be able to answer these questions. If they get the question correct, the instructor has provided some detailed information to kind of extend their learning, to give them some reminders of other things that they might see on their exam later on down the road, to give them some information about some of maybe the other answer choices that they were presented with in case they need to review some of the material that was in the lecture. And if they get the question incorrect, they have an opportunity to try again, and it reminds them to go back to whatever the source material was for the lesson in order to make sure that they have that concept ready to go before proceeding. So this just gives them a moment to take a breath, to really think about what they've learned and to process that information before proceeding to the next part of the lesson so that they can hopefully reinforce what they've learned and be more successful in later higher stakes assessments.
Great, thank you. All right, research says that guiding students' cognitive processing and allowing students to control the pace of presentation help learners actively engage with learning while managing cognitive overload. And now we've already seen some examples of this where we've used accordions and other pieces to kind of make, to help with that interactive experience for content organization. But Carla, why don't you tell us about some of the ways that you've provided active engagement in your courses?
Okay. So because I build most of my courses for professional development for instructors, I use the quick checks as more of an exit ticket, a way for them to review the content for that formative assessment in order for them to progress to the next module. And that was just to switch things up a little bit, because in the past, every time we would do an in-house professional development course, we would have just like a quick quiz at the end or a discussion. So I figured to change it up, it would be easier to put those in as they're progressing through the content. Because like students, sometimes those instructors need that formative assessment as well, especially when I'm teaching them something new, because most of the in-house professional development that I do, I'm also assisting them with getting them acclimated to using Cidi Labs, but I'm breaking it down, very intermediate level, like this is how you do this, you click here to do this. So just to make sure that they are grasping that, so when they do get ready to build their courses, they're able to progress through those steps.
Thank you. Yeah, those low stakes assessments are great as a way to just kind of solidify the things that you're covering. I do want to cover one other quick fun thing that we've recently added to the Design Plus sidebar for kind of interactive features. This is something we call flip cards, where you can add information where students can flip over and see kind of the additional information on it. So these are just kind of a fun additional way that students can interact. And like everything that we build in Design Plus, these have keyboard controls. They have appropriate information to let screen readers know what's going on, what side of the card they're seeing, et cetera, because accessibility is something that is very important, which brings us to our next step here, our strategy number 3, design for accessibility from the start. Now, one of our coworkers at Cidi Labs discovered this great survey, or this great research just recently, that says that 65% of students with a disability do not report it. This is another one that you can find in the slides that's got the details and the reference to this. But if you look at this, it's amazing how many people have disabilities that you may not even know about. And so it's important, you know, it's easy to focus on those that you do know about. But if that's where your focus is, you're missing out on a lot of opportunities to bless and help other people. And I just lost my screen there for a second, so hopefully we're back. One of the things that I love about this is what is called the curb cut effect. This idea that when we design for disabilities, we make things better for everyone. Curb cuts were originally introduced as a disability thing, but not only do they help people with wheelchairs, they help those with strollers and luggage and bicyclists and skateboarders and your grocery cart and all of these different things. So when we design for accessibility just right from the beginning, we bless the lives of all of those that come into our stuff. And research says that concrete examples and models have been shown to be more effective for promoting teacher learning, concept implementation, student achievement than general principles. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand things off for the last, we've got about 10, 15 minutes left of this. So I'm going to hand it off to Carla and Taylor to share some of their concrete examples and insights for designing accessible courses right from the beginning. So Carla, why don't you take it away?
Yes, sir. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is a template that I built that I named Start Here. It's kind of one of the templates that I put together to kind of help us with RSI, which is regular and substantive interaction, which is something that is really big in online classes as far as making sure that courses don't have their correspondence field, that there's some sort of interaction in there, but at this point of it, just kind of making the instructor feel a little bit more personable. So here, in addition to me just giving them information as far as how to contact me if they have an issue, I decided to add some more personable information in here about me, you know, so they can learn a little bit more about me and understand that I'm human, so humanize me in the online format. But at the same time, it also helps them get started in the course. So it goes through the main things that they need as far as the core course documents that they need to be successful, how to get support as far as through Canvas or through us here at eLearning. I'm a big advocate for the Canvas app, so I encourage them to download that as well. And then I also help them navigate to the first module in the course by putting a button here at the bottom that takes them straight to module 1 for them to get started. And then we also covered earlier, you know, what research says about chunking information and reducing the cognitive overload. So I teach a course here called Freshman Orientation, and it's offered to our dual enrollment students. So those are our students who are still enrolled in high school, but also receiving college credit by taking courses with us. And so in this course, we cover a lot of things such as financial literacy, we cover netiquette, those type of topics. And so in this particular module, for financial literacy, we're talking about checking, savings, and online banking. It was quite a bit of information. And so in order for me to organize it, it was easier for me to use an accordion. And I kind of double used the accordion because to section off the 3 sections, I used an accordion, but I made it tabs in order to break down checking, savings, and online banking. But within each one, I actually used expanders to add all the information that needed to be in there. So, here there's a video on why we should use a bank. There's writing a check, using a check register. And the same is true for the savings account and how it's broken down with videos and, what's an emergency fund and so forth. So it was the easiest way to get all of that information into one place without it being such a cognitive overload for the students. And we've also talked about accessibility. Um, Previously, designing courses as a designer, I'll be honest, I wasn't exactly designing with accessibility in mind. I had done a couple of trainings on accessibility to kind of get myself acclimated to it. But when we purchase, you do it as an institution, we purchased it with the intent in mind to make sure that we help our instructors be able to make sure that the courses that they're putting out to our students are actually accessible. So this is the sandbox version of my course before I ever started making any changes to it when I ran the You Do It accessibility checker. And I'm going to be honest, when I saw that 595 errors, I was like, oh my God, am I really that bad of a designer? But the numbers and the breakdown on the dashboard for You Do It, it looks overwhelming, but most of them are pretty easy fixes. So it breaks the content down into 3 areas. You have your most common areas, and these are the areas that you tend to flag more for accessibility. So in my case, using a lot of color alone for emphasis, color contrast, and then YouTube captions, common suggestions. These are suggestions that you could do to make things more accessible. And then your common file issues. These are files that you actually add into Canvas. So it could be like a PDF file or a PowerPoint presentation that you uploaded that you have linked in your course somewhere. So this just gives you a visual breakdown of what your errors are for your content as well as what your errors are for your files. They have several ways to get started, and this is where it became beneficial for me when I started using it because I was a novice for accessibility. I started off with the easiest things to fix, and that's the easiest place to start. But they do have all these other options to get started, and some of the other ones that stood out to me as a designer and that I felt could be beneficial for an instructor who was using this on a course that might not have been scanned, and they actually have a student in their class that has an accessibility. Uh, you can do it by impact type. So say for instance, you receive a letter of accommodation from your Office of Disability Services that says you have a student maybe that has auditory issues. You can select visual issues, auditory issues, cognitive, emotive, and go ahead on and remediate those. So you're making an impact for that student right off the bat, and then you can go back and correct the other ones later. I'm sorry, y'all. My office has motion sensor lights, and when I don't move, they shut off. Um, so I just want to show you a few examples here. So once your course is actually scanned, when you go into You Fix It, it shows you where that error exists, or whether it's, in this case, whether it's on the syllabus, whether it's on a page, or if it's part of an assignment or anything like that. So in this case, this is in my checking, savings, and online banking. It says alternative text should not be the image file name. So if I click on review, it's going to pull that image up. And in this case, what it's showing is the name of the picture that I put there. So in this box, I can actually say, check with parts clearly labeled, such as date, and I'm not going to type it all the way out, but you would add your alt text there, and then you would hit save. And it'll process that, and it will mark it as fixed, and you can move on to the next error. So it's really just that simple to kind of fix things and You Do It. The same is true for course files. It'll tell you what the file issue is. In this case, it's missing a title, it's missing headings. You can click on review, and you can either download the file and remediate it, or if you want to, for accessibility purposes, you can have it generate an HTML version of it, which means it'll just create a full Canvas page with all of that content that replaces that file. So a student with a screen reader or any type of accessibility needs could be able to use that file, or they can create it and turn it into an MP3. But if you do download it and remediate it right here in this same window, you can turn around and upload it. And if you have that file linked in multiple places, you can just tell it to replace the uploaded file, and it replaces it everywhere in the whole course. So it was a game changer for me as a designer, and it's also been a game changer for our instructors, and we absolutely love it. And now I'm going to hand it over to Taylor, who is going to talk to you more about the UDoIT admin dashboard.
Great, thank you so much. So I love that Carla talked about some of her struggles getting started with the accessibility work, because we found at our institution that instructors were having that same kind of concern that she was having, where they were getting to UDoIT and they were getting pretty overwhelmed with what they were seeing in UDoIT. They were seeing that big number and they're like, I don't even know where to start. So on our end, we decided to take a look at the UDoIT admin section of our account. And with the new update to the UDoIT admin page, I love that it gives us like an overall accessibility score, and it breaks it down into these categories for things that are like high impact and gives us some issue types there, breaks it down further to medium and low impact. It also gives us some of these summaries at the bottom, kind of like what Carla was showing in UDoIT on the instructor side or on the course level. But for our entire term, in this case, it's our spring 2025 term, but when we started looking at these numbers, over 42,000 errors in our spring 2025 courses, over 25,000 suggestions. That's a big undertaking. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to go ahead and take a look at the reports section, and we wanted to choose as our report type issues. So this gives us a list of those same types of issues that Carla was just showing. So it will show us, are there a lot of issues with alt text being the file name? Are there a lot of issues with something else? And when we were trying to plan out what we wanted to do this term, we sorted by the number of active issues. And we noticed that, for instance, our number one issue in the spring was avoid using color alone for emphasis. Over 18, almost 19,000 errors in our spring 2025 courses. That's a lot of errors. And so it's easy to get discouraged by a number this big, but we also took it as an opportunity to recognize that perhaps this is a way that we could impact the most number of users, impact the most number of courses. And so when we were planning out our professional faculty development for this term and for this academic year, we used the report that we were getting in UDoIT admin to plan out what we were going to do. So we created a series called Fix It in UDoIT, where we had a written part, like a written text and a tutorial video showing them what is possible in UDoIT to help fix up their courses. And then we would have workshops to help instructors see that in live time. And that definitely has helped between the fall and the spring. We've definitely seen that help a little bit in terms of number of errors that we're seeing. But one of the concerns that we were seeing is instructors just getting really, really discouraged. They would see that they had a lot of errors about using color alone for emphasis. And their reaction was just to kind of say, then I just won't use color. Like, I just won't use it at all. And if I don't use it, it can't be an accessibility issue. And that was not the takeaway that we wanted them to get from this process. We didn't want them to shy away from using color. We wanted them to use it, but in a way that was also accessible. And so when we are working with our medical laboratory science program, we really wanted to make sure that we were showing that you can have the best of both worlds, that you can both have a bright, colorful, and engaging course that's also accessible for as many users as possible. So to show you a couple examples of some things that we worked on, this is for a hair and fiber analysis lesson. So we have that expander again to chunk that content like we were talking about earlier. But for the fiber analysis lesson, the material that I was handed from the instructor was a video that was totally silent. It had some text on screen about how different fibers burn, and then it had a video showing what that would look like. But again, if we're thinking about students who can't see that video, there's no way for them to know what's going on. However, the visual element of a video is really great and it's really important. And we still wanted to have that visual component but keep it a little bit more, but keep it accessible. So what we created were we used cards in columns to create these different cards for each type of fiber that was in that video. So it is color coordinated based on the type of fiber that it is. But it is not the only means of conveying that information. In the footer of each card, there is a section that tells them what fiber it is. So it's not the only way of conveying content, but color is helping to convey some information. We're also using images here. These are from unsplashandpexels.com, I think an unsung hero of the Design Plus suite, but all of these are decorative images. So there wasn't any additional alt text to write here. This was just quite simple, just to, again, add a visual element to this to make it a little bit more engaging. And we put this text in list format so that it reads it that way for a screen reader, and it's easy to scan if you're just looking at it. Just one more quick example of some things that we've been working on. We had again, from the same course, we had a lesson where they kind of needed to go back and forth between the textbook to get some vocabulary, and then come back to the lesson. However, for this lab course, the textbook is not listed as a required text. It's an optional text, which means some students aren't going to have that textbook. But to make a list of all of those vocab words didn't seem like the best use of time, especially for some students who have the textbook and maybe don't need that information. So we have over here some pop-ups so students can hover over the text to get the definitions of some of these terms, and which will also take them to links to different sources that they might need in case that they need that information as well. And these also act as buttons, and so those can be interacted with a screen reader or being navigated with a keyboard for students who need that kind of support. And anytime that we use something new like this in the course, we always make sure that in our instructions, we explain to students how it works. So they can hover over it to get more information, and a screen reader will recognize these as buttons, and so they can navigate that using a keyboard. Making sure that we explain that to students is, I think, really valuable so that they can navigate the course so that it is truly accessible to all students. With that, I'm going to pass things back over to Kenneth to wrap things up.
Great, thank you. And I love those cards that you used on that fiber one, because that's a good example of, yes, even though I could personally watch the video and get that information, it's still a quick reference and very colorful, and I love that. So hopefully you've learned a few things here, some things that you can take away to help improve your course design. If you do like these resources, Taylor, if you'll jump to the next slide here, we do have a Design Matters Digest. This is a monthly newsletter that brings together research and action to improve online course design. So we cover the research. We usually will have a webinar that goes along with it to talk about that as well. And with that, we are pretty much out of time. Hopefully, I saw that some of our Cidi Labs folks were answering questions as we go through. If you do have additional questions, you are welcome to reach out to us. You can visit cidilabs.com and reach out and ask for a demo or other questions. And thank you all for coming. Cidi, back to you.
So thank you, Kenneth, Taylor, Carla, for sharing all these great tools from Cidi Labs with us today. And thank you all for attending this session. Please remember to fill out a session evaluation for the session. They help us determine who will be best in track. And every entry is a chance to enter a gift card drawing. So don't forget to do that. We have Accelerate coming up in November, from November 17th to the 20th. Our call for proposals is open. And we also have IELOL coming up. We're accepting applications. So that will be due April the 25th. We have our fall awards portal that is now open as well. And if you like coming to these conferences, one of the other ways you can participate is to volunteer with OLC. So again, thank you all for coming. I'm going to post the evaluation link and all of these links again in the chat just so you have them. And thank you, everyone. It was good to see you.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Enjoy the other sessions.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.